So we almost completely overlooked Shackleton Base because it is just so grey. It's the kind of game that might turn reality monochrome around you if you look at it for too long. It looks like the kind of board game that would be in the background of a TV show. A TV show for dweebs.
Yeah, we wouldn't know anything about that sort of thing, would we, Tom?
Nuh-uh. It's also, quite frankly, a space-themed Euro game. There's not many of those around, are there? Well, except for, you know, the bland cherry on top for this game is that even the title is honestly quite boring and bad.
No, I don't think so. I think if you're a big science nerd, then this is quite exciting. Or if, like me, you've just watched loads of For All Mankind.
Well, maybe it's just the subtitle that I have a problem with. A Journey to the Moon? That is a lie. You're already on the moon, which is why I propose a new title, Space Cowboys Must Die, You're on the Moon Already. But guess what? None of these complaints actually matter. Because if you're a big fan of big games, then you're in for a big treat. Shackleton Base is a fantastic heavy Euro game, one of our recent favourites, in fact. It's been such a joy to play for this review that it's going right into my collection.
And that is superb form right there, with an excellent follow through, as we can see on the action replay. He's done this a few times before, hasn't he?
He has indeed, Gary. A perfect entry into the Kallax and a real look of shock there on the face of his teammates.
Absolutely. It is just textbook shelving.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn more about Shackleton Base. In this game, 1 to 4 players are going to stake their claim on the moon, the great orb of Gouda in the sky. Over just 3 rounds, you're going to build up an infrastructure of buildings and cards that will someday grant you many points. But to do so, you're going to have to allocate your funding, manage your workforce, and appease 3 different corporate entities.
So it's like it's putting the board meeting into board games. I like that.
Yes, very, very good. But remember, we put our hands up before we speak, Matthew.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir.
Now, the actual structure of this game, despite its unruly size, is really quite simple. Each round starts with everyone picking a shuttle that will give them a certain amount of workers and resources that they'll then use throughout the round. You'll then place those workers out onto the board to take their associated actions, but their function will change depending on where they're placed. Around the crater, they'll get you money or resources. When placed on the action spaces, they'll get you buildings or cards or corporate actions. Examples of corporate actions include filling out a spreadsheet with useful data, being on time, or engaging in polite chit-chat. Now, some of these actions will vary in effectiveness based on how many moon houses you use. And if you use your friend's moon house, well, you'll have to pay them some money. That's the 4th time I've had to pay you, Dylan, and I'm about to do something bad. So we can go to the crater to get resources, we can go to the action spaces to build buildings and fund projects, and finally we can go to the Lunar Gateway. This space gets you a little bit of money, but mostly it lets you staff your base with workers. Every time you build something onto the main board, you free up spots on your player board, with each building giving different bonuses if staffed correctly.
Sir?
Yes, Matthew?
Sir? On board, this is boring.
Likewise, on these action spaces, the yellow workers are extra good at doing construction actions, the red workers are really good for getting you cards, and the blue workers, they just love taking corporate actions. Arranging dividend schedules, restructuring departments, they're the only things that blue people can do to truly feel alive. It's why popular musicians such as Eiffel 65 and the Crazy Frog are just so bad at what they do. It's a simple cry for help. Now that I'm actually editing the video, I realise that we joke about the corporate actions quite a lot, but we don't actually explain what they are. Basically, there are 3 corporations sat by the side of the board, and when you take a corp action, you get to play their associated minigame. If you take a corporate action with Selenium Research, then you can turn the minerals that you've collected from the moon into some points by fulfilling a contract. If you take a corporate action with the Moon Tourism Agency, then you get to do some moon tourism and shuffle some guests around your board and send them to a casino or something like that. I just thought I'd clarify, because we chat about it loads in this video. We don't really normally do like a full rules teach in our videos, we're more about the vibes. So ideally, you want the right coloured worker for the right job, but you might have to pivot in an unexpected direction now and again. I want to build this building with a yellow worker to get a little bonus, but I've not got the materials. But to get the materials, I need to use a yellow worker on the crater to get the stuff to build the building. Which one do I choose? You're constantly having to make these trade-offs, these decisions based on what workers you have available at any given time. It's thrilling stuff. Do I use this worker efficiently, or do I use this action efficiently? It's interesting, right?
Tom, I know that this stuff is really cool to us, but isn't it for most people fundamentally quite boring?
No, it's not boring. It's interesting. I mean, maybe it's a little bit boring. But the corporations are exciting, Matt. They're exciting. Because in every game of Shackleton Base, you're going to use 3 different corporations from a pool of 7. And each one of these corporations has its own deck of cards, its own resources, and most importantly, its own special rules.
If this is starting to sound a little bit familiar to another science fiction game that we've covered recently, then well done. You've been keeping up with our videos. We'll stamp your loyalty card like so, and before you know it, you'll have 20 stamps, at which point we'll ship Tom directly to your house. Come on, Tom, get in. Get in the box. Get in the box, Tom.
I don't fit.
Yes, this game is a lot like SETI, the recent CGE space-based box that had a simple core system that got all scrumbled up by modular additions.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend lots of time dunking on SETI here. Like, I liked that game. I had a good time playing it for the review, but I didn't keep it in my collection after we did that review. Despite it honestly being far more attractive with some pretty delightful theme on its aliens, I just feel as though this game delivers on more of the promises that were made by that box.
I agree with that. I think the corporations in this have a really nice texture to them, and I don't think SETI's aliens were gimmicks. But this feels less gimmicky than that did.
Yes, that makes sense.
But Shackleton Base does fall prey to the same pitfalls of that game here and there. Games that have these really modular designs either need the core to be so simple and reliable that you can hang anything and everything off the back of that, or the game has to have modules which don't actually change the game that much. I think SETI leaned more towards the latter, if I'm honest, with literal aliens mechanically simmered down into just different flavors of dressing for your point salad. Meanwhile, here there's no expectation of epic stuff, of mystery, of grandeur. The 3 corporations it recommends you start with do mining, scientific sampling, and tourism. It's not really exciting, but here's the thing. I think the fact that this is a bit boring is the same reason that this game is superb. When a game becomes epic, the small stuff becomes big, and the big stuff becomes nebulous. If a tiny cube is a spaceship, then it means I should feel really excited every time I pick up and move a cube. It's a spaceship. But it's also just a little cube in a big game, so it's pretty likely that I won't. But in a more boring game, well, this is just a bit of wood. And I need 4 of these bits of wood to make a shed. And if I get 6 of them, I could make a really big shed. The absolute mundanity of just one wood or a stone, it ensures that whenever you achieve anything, it feels like a minor miracle, like you're your own personal Jesus turning water into a hut that marginally increases the efficiency of milling grain. I can't imagine what it would be like to build a Dyson sphere, and so it doesn't make my brain do any happiness. But I can imagine what it would be like to build a shed. And that feels awesome. What is a Dyson sphere anyway? It can't be better than like 4 sheds. Shackleton Base shines because just like Moon that we reviewed a little while ago, this is space stuff, but it's also slightly crap. You're just shuffling astronauts around the moon to maybe get a bit of metal, and then building some fancy space sheds. And mostly you aren't the pioneers putting humanity first. You're trying to balance the books by doing private contracts.
I love the sort of cynical edge that this game has, right? Like, the project that's kind of unfolding on the board of setting up this colony on paper feels like it would make more sense as a cooperative game. Nations cooperating together to build a better future on the moon.
Yeah, but no, we're not doing that. In fact, I like the fact that it's not like wry and overtly satirical in any way. The game just unfolds in the same way that scientific projects unfold in the real world. We can do this cool, amazing thing. But our sponsor also wants us to do this, so we'll do that first. And then we'll do the cool, amazing thing, probably
Maybe.
later. By far, my favourite moment whilst playing this game featured the corporation that handles tourism. Shuttling civilians up to have a poke around on the moon. It's a great way to make money. But until you've actually made things for these tourists to do, places for them to go, well, they have to go somewhere, and that means they tend to come in, clog up the spaces in your actual base where your researchers would like to be to do actual research. So I'm sorry, the laboratories have actually closed this week because we've got some private tours in. But we'll do the cool science next week with the money.
We promise.
Yeah. I adore this because it's relatable. Everybody knows what it feels like to have a tourist getting in the way of something. Well, all of that means that the most exciting thing that ever happened to me in this game, the moment that I just loved the most, I got a bus. The bus, Rover Tours. This bad boy meant that when tourists came to the moon, I could just send them straight to places immediately. Whoosh, they're gone and making me money. The wonderful beauty of boring logistics. I could have my cake and eat it with a bus. I just love this bus. This bus made my machine so efficient. Everyone else was so jealous of my bus.
But none of this would really matter if the game underneath wasn't really good and compelling, and we have missed out a crucial step that makes Shackleton Base tick along menacingly. You see, at the end of the round, these workers positioned around the crater go back to players' boards to staff their base. Lovely stuff. But they don't go back to the board of the player who placed them. Instead, you look at how many buildings of each colour are in front of that worker. Whoever's got the most, well, that guy is now theirs. Oh, you thought this little scientist was coming your way, did you? Well, tough luck, buddy. I'm about to plonk a huge lunar base down and snaffle up all of these moon lads and moon ladies. Waiter. Oh, somebody put area majority in my worker placement game.
Oh, keep your voice down, sir, or everyone will want a joke that doesn't have a punchline.
Oh, this Eurogame feels combative. You are constantly taking moves to poach other people's staff. You are constantly guzzling this communal pool of energy. You are constantly rinsing the equipment so that it is busted when other people want to use it. My strategy in a recent game had me rapidly trying to build out as many of my buildings onto this main board as I possibly could, with no intentions of paying any of the associated maintenance cost, then stuffing those very same buildings with tourists to make a quick buck. I exploited the goodwill that I'd earned on turns prior to torch my reputation and make that space paper. It's fine, I can get it all back next turn. Right? It's a game about pulling profits. It's not necessarily going to be a stable engine for the long term, but it's in the black for now, and that's all that matters. So it all works in a thematic sense, absolutely, but it clicks wonderfully on a mechanical level as well. This is a game that is bursting with combos, where initial gains quickly compound over and over and over again until you're having those turns. You know the ones. Look at me, I've had a good turn. I've got loads of things. We also really like how Shackleton Base changes at different player counts. At 4 players, super interactive, you're constantly pinching things from each other and generally being nasty. But at 2 players, it's kind of flexible. You can either have this super interactive Eurogame if you're gunning for the same corporations and doing the same things, or you can take a more passive point salady approach where you kind of stick to yourselves and go, nice, that's a good turn. But at any player count, that initial consideration of what to take from these shuttles remains a toothy way to kick off the round. 6 worker placements feels like loads. until it's not, because you need to split them between gathering and spending, and you want to juice both ends of that process, but sometimes it's just not possible, and you have to make bad decisions with your little spacemans. But that gentle upward curve is enticing. As you build out more of the board and get the odd card that clicks your strategy into place, it's got that satisfying pipelineism, doing a whole lot more in the same amount of time. Well, actually in Pipeline, you did a whole lot more, but in less time. But not all games are Pipeline. Not all games are stuffed with that much delicious oil. But I just think it's cracking. I think we recommend Shackleton Base,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really, really good.
Shuttles It Down definitely recommends Shackleton Base. Now, usually with a game this heavy, we are pretty reticent to do that sort of thing, because a lot of the idea with recommends is like, people can pick this up and have a good time.
Anyone can play this.
But I think actually it is heavy and crunchy. But when we've taught it to people who don't play as many games, they found it quite easy, relatively, to get into it. And I think a lot of that comes down to how tight the theme and the mechanics are. It's one of those games where all the rules in it feel really sticky. You teach people the game and they remember the rules because all the rules make sense.
Yeah, everything works kind of as you expect. And I think that it does have a really daunting presentation. Like, it looks like a heavy game. It feels like a heavy game, but it isn't that taxing in terms of rules overload, just in strategic decisions, which is kind of perfect, right?
Yeah. If you're looking for something that has a similar theme, although it's a bit more on the nose, a bit more cynically crap, but Moon is a really lovely small box game that's pretty crunchy and pretty excellent for its size.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a great Euro game, we recently did a video review of Black Forest. We're kind of spoiled for good Euro games at the moment,
Black
right?
Forest is smashing. It's very much
really good.
more like traditional, gentle, old school wooden sheep flavor, boring, but it's absolutely delightful.
Really nice.
Watch
really
that
nice.
video.
Yeah, watch it, it's fun. Watch it, now!
The only problem, and it's a pretty big problem that I want to wrap up the review with, sorry to be a downer, but the problem is, I want this game and Tom has it, it's in his collection, and I want it.
Well, actually, I'm just borrowing it from someone else at the moment. I haven't actually got my own copy, but I want my own copy.
So this isn't your copy of the game?
No, it's just a borrowed copy, yeah.
Well, how am I going to steal it?
No, you're not going to steal it, that's the point.
Whisper whose it is and I'll decide if I'm going to steal it or not. I'm not going to steal that.
No. Don't even think about it.
Did you meet them in prison?